I like the Bard. I think he's great. So today I'm just going to be talking about the Bard and just giving away some of my thoughts and opinions on the character, just explaining some of the little mechanics that some people are still somewhat confused on the character, and just to explain how does the character work out for those people that, that have not used the character, because the character can be quite difficult to actually get. But before all of that, if you yourself got some suggestion, just leave them in the comment section down below. I might do a video if I find the video interesting, or if I haven't done the video. And yeah, so give me your suggestion in the comment section down below. As well, give me your thoughts and opinions on the Bard. What makes the Bard so great, and or what makes the Bard so bad in your own personal opinion? I've been saying a lot of opinions on some of the other topics, and they have been interesting, just to say the least. With all that being said, let's get started. Hello and welcome to another JMP video. I'm your host JonNario, and today I'm going to be talking about the Bard. Before all that, I forgot to mention this in the intro because I'm smart, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help me out. We're on the road to 4K subs. I'm so professional, sorry about that. So yes, today I'm just going to be talking about the Bard. What in my own opinion just makes the character so good and so fun to play around with. Quickly became my favorite magic damage character in the entire game, and it is the character that I personally like to use for, for searching stuff. Like if I'm grinding for Leviathans, I mainly am using the Bard. I can use the Neon Ninja, and obviously the Neon Ninja is quicker, but in the case of this character, I just feel much more in control than something like the Neon Ninja. It's a personal thing that I have with the Neon Ninja, that I tend to just either mistime the Shadow Flip, or I just don't use the Shadow Flip, which is a problem. But this character, I feel that it feels so much more consistent for me, and I like it a whole lot more. So I'm just going to be explaining first and foremost how does the character work out for those players who have not used the character, or still are somewhat confused on how to use the character effectively. It does have a lot of different abilities. Yeah, it does have 3 stages on basic, it does have the standard 2 abilities, it does have all of the songs that you can perform. So the very first sight, it might just be a very confusing character, but in reality, this character is super simple and super easy to understand. This is mainly a basic attack type character, similar to going to be like the Dino Tamer. I will be doing a lot of comparison to the Dino Tamer with this character, because both this and the Dino Tamer float in the same realm in that regard. They are both characters that uses basic attack. They are both characters that uses ultimate ability for movement speed purposes. They are both characters that generally doesn't have the highest damage multiplier. And yeah, they're generally both that are pretty good for dungeon grinding, among the best dungeon grinding characters in the game. So yeah, both of them are extremely similar to one another, and even if you can stretch it out, yes, both of them are magic damage characters. So if you don't like, let's just say, the Dino Tamer, but you are interested in using the Bard, then using the same gems and equipment might just work out perfectly. The only thing is that obviously this character uses a different weapon, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, mainly this is going to be a basic attack type character. You are mainly going to be using the basic attack all the time. You are generally, for speed farming dungeon, you are not going to be using, some of the songs, like all of the songs, and just getting high melody count so you can do high damage with your basic. If you wanted to be just as efficient with the character, you generally, for the most part, you are going to be just using your stage 1 basic, and mainly just using your Jubilant song, which is your green song, or the first song that you literally are seeing right now in the hotbar. So yeah, you're generally are going to be using the basic attack and that. Those are the 2 things that you will be using mainly for the most part on the Bard. Mainly for the most part, ignore the Singing Crystal. You can use it for certain application. Like in the case of my Bard, it does help out more to actually just use the Singing Crystal and Crystal Pop rather than using basic attack, because my Crystal Pop does one-shot and basic attack does not, which is the only thing that I just see it being useful for. But for the majority of the time, you are mainly just using basic. So keep using basic all the time, and just use your epic riff Jubilant song buff 100% of the time, and yeah, that's essentially how to use the Bard. Now, some of the things that I feel that the Bard is just really good, it's just going to be, it is an extremely powerful character for momentum building, which is a good sign for characters that are good for speed farming, because half of your actual movement speed when it comes to speed farming is tied to actually just maintaining movement speed buffs. I'm just going to say this every single time that I mention a character regarding momentum, is because of this reason. This is Uber 10 and you can actually just see that just having really good momentum does help out the character greatly in moving into dungeon really quickly. I know I could just go into the shortcut, but I'm mainly just showcasing the momentum on the character so you can actually just see it in full action, you know, on the bard. Generally, you are going to be just one-shotting enemies with your basic attack, because the basic attack does 2.5 at a minimum in stage 1, and stage 2 does 4 times damage multiplier of 4.5, which is pretty high for a damage multiplier on basic. And to top it all off, the basic attack is pretty fast to come by. It's not a basic attack with long animation, it's just a really instant, just whoop, and that's it. Just an instant, just press a button and you will see like a little beam like right there. It's very similar to the Night Spirit Squire in that regard. That is just instant cast, and it is obviously very spammable, and it does have enough damage multiplier that can just one-shot a lot of the enemies. And it is extremely good for you to actually being able to maintain momentum on this character, which is what makes the character so great at dungeon grinding. You're clearly just seeing it right now on screen, like how does the character just perform in Uber 10. It really is just that good of a character. To top it all off, like a thing that I didn't even mention is not only that momentum building is good, the movement speed buff is amazingly powerful. The reason that I did mention that only 2 things that you will be doing with the bard is just going to be your basic attack and obviously Jubilant Song. Those are the 2 things that you will be doing 100% of the time on this character, which those are going to be extremely good because the Jubilant Song is a really strong movement speed buff, and it does work perfectly with the bard because it's a percentage movement speed buff. Again, I'm just going to reiterate the point of momentum. Having good momentum is extremely good, and especially even more so for percentage movement speed buff, because percentage movement speed buff gain more benefit the higher your base movement speed is. If you are just running around really quickly on your character, having a lot of base movement speed buff active at the same time, it means your percentage movement speed buff will be stronger. That's why something like the bard subclass is, for me, in my own personal opinion, the best subclass in the entire game, which is a percentage 15% movement speed buff. In the case of the Jubilant Song on this one, it's a plus 40% movement speed buff if you do have the class gem, of course. If you do have the class gem ability, which you should honestly on this character, because it does help out with basic and it does help out with all of your songs, the character having a plus 40% movement speed buff is insanely powerful. Excluding the the 75% from the Draco from the lava movement speed buff, this is the second strongest movement speed buff in the entire game, right behind the Neon Ninja's Shadow Flip, which is a 50%. 10% movement speed less than something like the Neon Ninja, coming from a movement speed buff that lasts for 30 seconds. That's nothing short of amazing. And to top it all off, like I just mentioned, once again, this character is really good at momentum building. The Neon Ninja, up until the Depth Stepper out, they had terrible momentum building. This character, it's just, for me personally, or for I like to say for most of the players, it's just going to be easier and just as effective. Obviously, the Neon Ninja can just literally one-shot everything in his path, but this character is just such an easy to use character. You can literally just go ahead and just run around really quickly. You don't even need to just do backflip or just maintain the movement speed buff every 2 seconds. You can literally just activate the Jubilant Song every 30 seconds and just keep killing all of the enemies rather quickly using your basic attack. You don't need any stats except maybe attack speed, because again, it's basic attack, but you don't need energy regeneration, you don't need anything in particular. Energy regeneration does help out because the ultimate ability does take quite a bit of energy to actually cast both the Epic Rift and the Jubilant Song, so all of that do take quite a bit of energy to cast. So energy regeneration does help out, but it's not mandatory. And in the case of all of that, the attack speed is the only thing that I will say is mandatory, but if you do have high enough stats that you can just one-shot with one basic, then generally you don't need that much attack speed because you're one-shotting. But even still, like, just having high attack speed does help out greatly no matter the character that you're using, well, except with the character that obviously doesn't affect the attack speed, but this character is, attack speed is very, very helpful. So now that you know some of the things that just makes the character great, momentum building, movement speed buff, what are some of the things that the character doesn't do really well? Because obviously this is not a perfect character. It is not the character that you are definitely going to be using it all the time for every single purpose when it comes to speed farming or when it comes to every single content available. So first and foremost, let's start talking about the first problem. The first problem with this character is that it doesn't necessarily have the highest damage multiplier. So this character is a character that mainly relies on having pretty high stat to actually being able to one-shot. You can clearly see that my Bard has, you know, pretty good stats for a 34.5 KPR character, and it doesn't one-shot. Like, it doesn't one-shot regular enemy without Arcane Emblem on stage 1 basic, which is quite troublesome considering that this is your main momentum building. You can easily just use Arcane and just one-shot, obviously. So I'm not going to say that it's that big of a deal, but it's going to be even more so of a big of a deal if you're talking of a Bard that is on the mid game, because once again, this is your main spammable for the most part. So not having high damage multiplier, it means that the character will struggle at lower stats. So in the case of, let's just say for example, let's just go with the Knight, just to do a quick example. The Knight does have Spirit Square for as an example. Spirit Square does ridiculously high damage on an 8 times damage multiplier. So it means players that are in the mid game can easily just kill enemies at the same way that I'm killing right here. You only need to dish out around 70.5 million HP to actually just kill regular enemies like this one. So in the case of the Spirit Square, it's much easier to being able to maintain movement speed buff just like this one. But in the case of the Bard, you don't have that luxury to do that at the early game, so it is quite a bit of a problem in that regard. And essentially that's mainly the problem on the Bard. Some of the other things that the Bard generally has is just going to be, aside from that, the basic attack seems to be somewhat unreliable, and you will sometimes even hit an enemy and it will not register, and that will happen quite often on the Bard. So the basic attack can be quite unreliable in that regard, which can be quite of a weakness, but that's mainly a problem with Trove more so than a problem with the character. So if you're not lagging and if the actual basic attack is actually registering, it actually does work out. But if it happens a little bit of lag, then it can be quite a problem. So it could be another of a weakness. Another thing is just going to be, like I just mentioned, now having high damage multiplier means that the character lacks one-shotting. So, you know, for me, I can one-shot regular 1-star bosses with something like the Singing Crystal, but not one-shotting like bosses like in general is a disadvantage comparable to some of the other characters like the previously mentioned Knight. Like the Knight can just literally just press a button, just kill enemies, just keep moving forward. In the case of this one, you know, so you can just see an enemy like right here, you actually have to hit the enemy twice so you can get movement speed buff, rather than just using something like that high damage multiplier like the Knight, which is just press one button, everything dies in front of you. So that's a problem with the character. So mainly the problem with the character justifies into just, you know, damage multipliers. It's not necessarily the strongest character out there, meaning that it's not going to be a character that's going to reliably just one-shot everything. So in order to make it effective and make it work, you need to know to being able to maintain the movement speed buff, because the movement speed buff is a percentage movement speed buff. So you need to be able to not only have high stats to one-shot, you also need to know how to maintain movement speed buff in order to make the character just work out perfectly. If you manage to do all of that, then this character is among the best dungeon grinding character in the entire game, because generally it has everything else going for. Does it have survivability? Yes, it does have the Peaceful Sun, which does help out in survivability. It also has pretty good range, and not only that, it technically just have a 1 second invulnerability with the Nimble Dance, which again is really good. So it does have survivability, it does, like I just mentioned multiple times, it does have momentum, it does have the range, consistency on the character. It doesn't necessarily need any stat because you're using basic for the most part. It has like a spammable, aka the basic attack, and you know, in general, it's just a character that just feels good and it's pretty easy to use because it's a basic attack character. Therefore, the only thing that you need to keep a watch is just going to be maintaining, you know, the Jubilant Song every 30 seconds. So you don't even need to just keep watch on so many things on the character just to make it work. And that's why I do feel that the Bard is just so good. My favorite magic damage character in the entire game, and among top 3 in dungeon grinding character in the entire game. It does technically just boast the second strongest movement speed buff in the entire game. It does have really good consistency, survivability, and it's a character that is just generally easy to use, that you can just pick up and all you gotta do is just basic and use Jubilant Song and you will be good to go. But yeah, that's essentially going to be everything regarding the Bard. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the Bard in the comment section down below. Also, if you got suggestion, just as well, let me know in the comment section down below and I will try to do a video on your suggestion and just give you a shout out similar to Jose Mendez. Thank you for the suggestion. With all that being said, thank you once again for watching and I hope to see you next time. Take care and keep on hunting. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and all that good stuff. See ya.